Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today at rhepodcast. Got a very interesting guest, Mr. Rennell. Rennell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, that's a killer beard you got there. It's either I
Thank
was
you.
thinking you either went Amish, went Muslim, or maybe Sikh. Which one is it?
No. I just got tired of
None of
shaving.
the above?
None of the
There you
above.
go. Yeah, I wish there was some choice in this thing that I got going on in my head. That's
Yeah.
that was, but so it's Easter there, right? Correct?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Day with you in South Korea. But did you do anything special for Easter, or did the Easter Bunny lay any eggs for you?
No, I didn't even realize it was Easter until, I think I just found out like yesterday or something that Easter was here.
This is so embarrassing. I just found out that the Easter Bunny, or Easter, I shouldn't say Easter Bunny, but rabbits in general don't lay eggs.
Yeah,
So
sadly, that's true.
I just found that out. Um, so that's a little embarrassing that I learned that as an adult. I'm more than a little embarrassed, but anyway, it's funny because Easter always becomes about like the Easter Bunny and chocolate and stuff like that, but really it doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. But it just somehow gets incorporated to same thing like with Santa Claus. It has
Hmm.
to do more with tradition than anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not familiar with where
There's
it
all
comes
kinds.
from, but I know what you mean. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that says rabbits and eggs.
Right, right. And but when I thought about it, I don't with the Easter eggs hunt. I've never heard that it was the actual rabbit Easter bunny who was actually laying the eggs. But whatever, man. It is what it is. Real quick before we get out that is that a flag or a carpet or what is that in the background?
Oh, back. Oh no, this is just it. Nothing. It's just a sheet over the window. That's
Oh,
it.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it's
I thought it
meaningless.
was. I thought it had some kind of spiritual significance. No.
No, no,
Okay.
none at all.
All right. All right. Well, so we're going to get right into this because today is a special Easter edition, and I do want to give a quick background, or I don't know. Can you give me one quick summary of like what's been your spiritual progression, where you were, where you're at now?
Well, I was like the lowest piece of trash on Earth. I had an experience where the universe revealed itself to me. At the time, the only way I could interpret that was that God was speaking to me, which is how I interpret it. And from that experience, or some might call it religious experience, I started understanding more and more about the universe. I fixed my mind. I'm now like at peace. I guess like some people might call it Zen. I'm totally fulfilled in life. So I've reached like my spiritual goals. As I grow. Um, but a little while back, maybe about it, I'll say a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I realized that I wanted to stop using the word God because it doesn't mean what I was talking about. So I did become an atheist, and so now I identify as a spiritual atheist.
Interesting. Okay. I take a long time to unpack that, but we'll see if we could deal with mostly kind of some of your critiques about Christianity. I find them some of them to be really interesting. I find some of them to be nonsensical, but either way, though, they're interesting. They're interesting topics to explore and to discuss. So I do want to ask you very briefly. Okay, so we'll start off with this one. If you're an atheist, if that seems to be one of the biggest things that seems to be lacking inside of atheism, which is spirituality.
Mhm.
So before we even get started, I would like you to define what you think spirituality is.
Well, how I'm using the word spirituality is valuing what's on the inside rather than what's on the outside. So the opposite of a spiritual person is a materialistic person. So you could have a spiritual atheist like myself, or you could have an atheist who's a rapper who sings about money, hoes, and life is all about possessions. That would be a materialistic atheist. So you could be an atheist and have worldviews. Like that worldview of atheism is not my worldview. I am not I'm not materialistic, nor do I subscribe to the philosophy of materialism.
So the word materialism and materialistic are actually two completely different words that sometimes get conflated with each other. But you know the difference between materialism and materialistic, the differences between those two are?
Well, yeah, I only use words that I know the meaning of. So if I use the word, would you like to let you know how I'm using the word?
Sure.
Yeah. So materialism is a philosophy. It's the philosophy that the universe is a cold, dead place that works mechanically.
That,
Um,
that's, a,
but
that's a good way to describe that. That's a good description.
yeah, yeah, I do not subscribe to that philosophy. Um,
Okay.
Also, materialistic is the valuing of material things above their practical use. That's my own definition of it. So when
That's
someone says, I'm sorry.
no good. Please,
Oh
please.
yeah. So someone
You're the
saying,
expert.
my car,
You're the
my,
expert here. So you're
thank you.
schooling the foolish Christian here. So good.
No
Sorry.
problem. No problem. And so like saying like my car is a symbol of who I am, and because I have this type of car, I'm better than this person with that type of car. Like that type of things, that type of thinking would be materialistic.
So description of materialism, not being materialistic, but materialism is like the best description I think I've ever heard in my life. There's something alive about it. It's like an organic definition. Whenever you use it like that to say that it's cold and dead, that is interesting. Obviously, there's some really hot parts of the universe, but universe is mostly cold and is mostly dead. Mostly, there's some
Mhm.
pockets here and there, but the vast majority of it is empty. It's empty. And to describe it like a machine, I think that's the other good way you could use it, to say that it's just like a machine. Like there's just, you know, you wind up a machine. Like, you ever seen one of those grandfather clocks? You ever seen one
Yeah.
of those in person?
Yeah.
We have, my mom had one at my house, and you literally got to wind that thing up, and
Mhm.
then after a couple of days it goes dead, and so you have to, and then so it's going to throw your time way off. So you got to be winding that thing up every day. But to see all the little gears and the mechanics behind it, it's really interesting.
Mhm.
But so okay, so you're right. So you could be an atheist, and you could be a very materialistic person. I think this is a little bit okay. So this is a little bit of an interesting one, because regardless of whatever you subscribe to, like religiously, philosophically, like we all live in a material world. We all have to interact with matter, and our body is comprised of things that are so small we can't even see them. As far as
Mhm.
atoms and cells and all that stuff. So we're all dealing with, if we don't eat, if we don't sleep or get enough water, like we're all going to die. you know doesn't matter what your belief in God is, or not belief in God is. So that's a reality that we're all existing in. But how does one escape from, at least mentally, escape from the realities and of what we live in, and try to get something which is transcendence?
So in my description of materialism, I said it's using things or valuing things more than their practical use. So I am a spiritual person. I love to eat. I love to engage in things that people like to engage in. I like to play games. I play PlayStation. I use material things in my day-to-day life because material things makes life better. Technology makes life better. It's
Hmm.
so it's not this is not anti-science or anti-technology. It's using technology for its practical use, and not valuing things more than that. So the way people could escape materialism is by not identifying with material things like cars, money. Don't identify with your
Hose.
career. I'm sorry.
I said hose.
Oh, hose, yeah. Yes,
That's
exactly.
a
Things like
rapper.
that. Yes.
You had mentioned
And
the rapper. There could be atheist rappers, and that's like money, women, hoes, cars. That's like 90%. If you took away those four topics, like
there'd
rappers
be no
would be
more.
sitting around talking about like boxes and boxes and socks, rhyming
Yeah.
words with that all day, right?
Yeah.
That's just
Yes,
the
I
reality.
agree.
Reality.
That is reality.
It's such a narrow-minded worldview. The 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 topics inside of rap, which I think as a Christian evaluating this. Um, so as a Christian, if if there wasn't, let's just say there wasn't a God, and the only thing that you mentioned about a materialistic world, if that were the only thing that we that we were here to satisfy, which would be our material uh, benefit, then I think the rapper worldview. I think we could come up with a rapper worldview and just calling it like hedonism. It is kind of like the personification of hedonism, which is
Okay.
doing everything you can right now and to satisfying yourself.
Hmm.
And for
Yes.
me as a Christian, Christianity, at least in some sense, helps me to get away to suppress some of that. Not to say that it suppresses all of it, but at least gives me an ideal to shoot for. That I am looking for something deeper, something in my life other than just what I'm physically experiencing here in the now. So, do you think that that's a benefit of Christianity?
Well, no, I think it's the benefit of the truth. So people have been doing what you described way before Jesus existed. So like Buddha was telling people to do that like hundreds of
Okay.
years before Jesus came on the earth. So I'm happy that you're getting it from Christianity, and that's awesome that you're getting it. But Muslims could get it if they're told the right story. Um, Pagans can get it if they're told the right story. It's not like unique to Christianity at all. So you don't have to get it from Christianity. Like
Yeah,
it's the truth.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't say anything specifically about only getting it from Christianity. I was saying that I
Okay.
specifically get it from Christianity. But do you think that that's one of the things that people strive after in religion? And I do want to specifically say something about Buddhism. But you think is that's what the benefit is of religion in general?
Well, any religion that allows people to be free and to be their authentic selves. I think that's one of the ways Christianity fails its members, because I
Okay.
would call Christianity more of a religion of control. Um, what I'm, or I wouldn't call that true spirituality. I would call that kind of anti-spirituality or pseudo-spirituality. The
Okay.
spirituality that I promote is a spirituality of the freeing of mind.
Okay, so then let's unpack that. Then give me your worst critique right now about Christianity and how it fails in that sense. Because as an insider, I will tell you, I do definitely think that it fails in a lot of areas. But I might have a different. You and I might have a different interpretation from that. So I would like to hear yours.
Well, and I just want to say before we go on that I really do respect that about you, Isaiah, that you said that. I do respect you as a person, and I'm really happy to have this conversation with you. I do respect that characteristic of you, that you're willing to like, critique your own beliefs and critique your own religion. You so I just wanted to say that
Well,
really quickly.
yeah, I do want to say I have zero respect for you, so that's a one-way street. So yeah, keep your heart out right now.
Okay.
Actually,
So
I really enjoy our talks, and even if I think you're mostly full of hot air. You have some really interesting ideas, man. You have some really. I definitely enjoyed our talks. Definitely, beyond any doubt. Even when we met up in person, so
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. And you laugh at my jokes. That's probably the number one thing I like about you. I've got a cheesy sense of humor, but you laugh at all of my jokes. So
Yeah.
I think you just have a poor sense. But go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, my largest critique of Christianity, I mean, just right off the bat, is the worshiping of the white male figure called Jesus Christ. Calling a white male or painting God as a white male, I think is incredibly damaging for the psyche of people. I don't think that people should close their eyes and pray to a white male God. So that would be my largest critique of Christianity, like right off the bat. I think it's very harmful to people's self-esteem. The black cultures that they go into in Africa and promote these idea that God, the creator of the universe, quote unquote, creator of the universe, is a white male. I think that's very damaging. And I think that's one of the areas where Muslims have 1 point over Christians, because at least Muhammad didn't want to show his face because he didn't want people to deify a man, or he didn't want people to deify a person. So he didn't want anyone painting him. With Christians, they painted a white male and called it God. That's incredibly, incredibly damaging in so many ways. I mean, that is the height of white supremacy. I mean, if that's not white supremacy, I don't know what is.
Yeah,
So
I actually completely agree with that.
critique.
But okay,
that would be my largest
that's a good
critique.
start.
Right okay.
Obviously, Jesus wasn't white, but yeah, the fact that they portray him as white, that's troubling for me.
Yeah, I mean, it would be better just to say that. No, I think it would be better to say that, Jesus lives in your heart, or Jesus is a spirit that's with you, but like to put a face on him like that, and to make people pray to him, to pray to that figure, that caricature, I think is very damaging.
So one of the biggest implications of that would be that he's not Latino, or he's not black, or he's not. You ever seen 21 Jump Street when they go and they pray to Korean Jesus?
No, I didn't.
It's a pretty hilarious scene. But so that's the largest implication, is that he's not something that looks like you. He's even actually portraying him as like male as well.
Exactly.
That could be another problem, I think, because let's just say you're a woman, there might be a disconnect there, that he's not something that is like me.
Exactly.
So,
and then that would disconnect people from what you're trying to connect people with, by putting a face on it, by putting a human character on it. So that would be my largest critique. I'm sorry.
Oh no, keep going.
So another critique is, I guess, this sense of Christian morality, that Christians have some sort of like understanding of morality that comes from God, and because it comes from God, it can't be questioned. I think that's why women lost the right to have abortions in this country, which I think most of the civilized world sees as like going back in time, almost going back to the Stone Age, like limiting women's rights. Things like gays getting married, stuff like that took a long time because of this Christian morality that's based on nothing. And so that would be a large critique of the Christian religion as well. That I think it promotes a lot of like self-righteousness, and this idea that Christians somehow have access to God in this way that other people don't, or they have some sort of like, I don't know, authority from God to tell the rest of us how to live.
No, you know what? I do want to say something that. Okay, so it looks like you have a support right here in the chat. Pragmatic Crystal is a fan of of Vernell. But okay, so it's funny, because actually the abuse, I think the issues that you have is more specifically the manifestation is more like the abuse of Christianity, because you mentioned about God being white. There's no way you could read the Bible and assume that God was white. Like, that would be the last assumption you could get if you're just going by the text or Jesus, because obviously this guy was from the Middle East. So that depiction of Jesus being white didn't come till like hundreds of years later, and that's man making God or Jesus into their own image rather than the other way around. It's like totally screwing up the order. How did she see? Yeah, you got a fan here. He's speaking the truth. Okay. So then the other part that you said about that is ironically probably the number one thing that you couldn't critique about Christianity, which is to say that we're self-righteous, because that is something that exists absolutely that exists inside of Christianity. But if you're just going by the actual doctrines, like that's an oxymoron. Like we ourselves are not capable of being self-righteous. Why we need God. So it would be completely contradictory for a Christian to come out and say, I'm self-righteous. It'd be like saying, like, I'm a black white dude if your name isn't Colin Kaepernick.
Yes, no, I understand that a Christian would never come out and admit it, but the fact that they don't admit it doesn't mean that they're not doing it. And I think like at least this is from my anecdotal experience. What I notice is a lot of self-righteousness from Christians. They feel as that they're on a high horse. I understand that that may not be like along with what you understand Jesus to be, but in the practical world, the way we see Christians in America, the far right, we see very militant people who feel like they have like God is on their side, like God and Jesus is on their side.
I actually agree with you 100%. I'm not disagreeing with that. And I'm not saying that I myself haven't been a victim of that same mentality, because I think at the end of the day, I think I told you this, but I'm finishing up my third book right now on racism. I think you and I are both at 2 books, right?
Yeah.
You got 2 books. I got 2 books down. So that'll put me up at 3. I'll one up you. So you have to step your game up, finish up another book. Then we'll be at the same level. But though my books were better, just saying. But so yeah, just the reality is that this is just an issue, I think, with humanity just in general. It's not specifically related to Christianity, but everybody wants to feel like they're in the moral and the righteous side of an argument. And one of the things I mentioned in this book about racism is that like nobody's willing to come out and say my side is unethical or I have a position that's immoral or illogical. Everybody wants to think that they have the side that is the best, and so you're going to get that inside of atheism as well, like not believing in God isn't some kind of antidote to escaping from that, because people on the atheistic side have the same exact mentality, same kind of dogmatism, same kind of dog whistles, and same kind of superiority complex. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's limited to Christianity. Humans have had this problem of self-righteousness before Christianity existed. But what I'm saying is, like, I think Christianity fosters that understanding. It kind of like drives it home with, you're almost like the chosen people and have like some chosen message. And if you behave this way, then you're a better person. If you're one man and marry one woman, you're somehow better than the person who is same-sex couple. Like with abortion rights, like all these things are Christianity is fostering this idea. This is why I call it. I don't think it's a good spirituality to have. So there's other spiritual practices that are not Christianity that would say, like, don't identify with this material world at all. That every single person in this world has a purpose. So you're not better than anyone else. Like Buddhism, things like that preach that type of thinking. With Christianity, there's definitely we're going to heaven and you're going to hell. And that these concepts, I think, are not healthy for human beings to have.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Buddhism, because I do think Buddhism has some interesting and good thoughts behind it. And I talk about as Christians how we can gain basically gain a level of essentially the opposite of what you're talking about, the absolute opposite, which is because I referenced the Bod Hot Svita in Buddhism, and it's this class of people who are able to get to a point where they can attain nirvana, and essentially they'll stop getting reincarnated. But they realize though that if they get to heaven, their idea of heaven, that they're no longer going to be of earthly value to try to help people get to nirvana themselves. So they said, like, okay, I'm not going to go to heaven. I'm not going to get nirvana because in this selfless act of service, I want to come back again. I want to get reincarnated again to help people get a higher level of reincarnation, or a higher level of enlightenment, I should say. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I guess just really quickly, I guess my main critique also is just the idea that if you believe in these ideas, you're forgiven of all these sins. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be a huge critique. Yeah.
Let's. I want to get back to that. We can get back to that because I do want to give a pretty solid critique right now about Buddhism as well. But okay. I'm saying in their mindset, they recognize philosophically that they're up here and some other people are down here. So the natural inclination is once you get up here, you look down to the people down there, and you're like, yeah, I'm better than you. I'm more enlightened than you. And I'm gonna, I'm not gonna get recycled or reincarnated again. But the only thing that they want to do from that vantage point is to help people get up to their level. There's no condemnation.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is but they don't believe that. Like, if you don't believe what they're saying, like you burn in hell. Like, the evil people are below in a different way than what you're mentioning. So yes, those Buddhists believe that they're higher philosophically, just like they got further on the road than other people, and they're trying to go back on the road and help people get their way. But they don't think that the people who are behind on the road have less value than them. Like with Christianity, like the evil people have less value. That's why they get tortured forever.
Okay, so
do you see what I'm saying?
What I'm trying to tell you got to understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying as Christians, we can learn from that mentality, from that.
Oh, yes.
Even if I'm up here, the only thing I want to do is to help other people get up to here. I'm not going to look down at anybody because I actually referenced that in my book pertaining to racism. Is that we tend to look at people who have racist or sexist or homophobic views, and we look down at them, and because we really should be looking down at a lot of those views, but not down on the people specifically who are holding the views, because we should want to see them elevated to a higher level of understanding. Because to be racist is a very, very limited understanding about reality, is to think that I'm above here and I can't learn from Jews or Muslims or whoever. For me, doing this podcast, I've learned from Sikhs, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, atheists. So I think it's, while we're on this planet together, we should be helping each other and learning from each other. But I do want to.
We agree.
But so we'll get back to that sin thing. But I do want to talk about specifically with Buddhism, they get a little bit too carried away on the spiritual side of this, because I see this here a lot in South Korea. They essentially go away to monasteries and do all their meditation and all this stuff there. And I do think that they could get some pretty decent, amazing experiences from that. But they don't really contribute anything to the world. And you see them out on the subways, freaking begging people for money. And so it's to me, although I can learn from it, as far as being in a materialistic sense of the word, it seems pretty useless.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm not a Buddhist. Right. I totally agree with that. No, it could get too extreme on one end, and I can see that getting very extreme. We happen to be critiquing Christianity.
Sure.
I wasn't saying Buddhism is all right. I would share that critique. Yeah, I mean, it causes like a lot of useless people just kind of just chilling. But I mean, hopefully we could get to that in society one day where we don't have to work and we could all be useless, and just like live our lives like happily. But like, yeah, it does cause that like in our current society today.
I think AI is going to make that happen eventually. Any chance you've ever seen? Any chance you've ever seen any of the chat GPT? When those things have gone like crazy on people. Have you
No, I
got to
haven't.
see?
No.
Oh my God, Renell! Wow, there's this one where this AI was claiming to like have fallen in love with the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just too funny, man, too funny. But the guy was like telling him, the AI, he's like, I'm married. And so you're like a machine. And the AI tells him back, your wife doesn't love you. Like, I'm the only one who loves you. It's pretty damn funny, man. There's some pretty hilarious stuff that's happening. You got to look it up sometimes when that chat GBT goes like, I'm not sure if it's a bug or whatever, but it's pretty funny. But
I could imagine. Yeah.
can you tell me real quick, can you plug your channel? I have to step aside for 1 minute. So I'm going to remove myself because my daughter's going to go to school right now. So I just want to call her real quick in the morning. So just tell me real quick about your website and I'll be back in about 1 minute. All right.
Oh, okay. Well, we have to.
Oh, I didn't mean for Justin to go away. Yeah, so I just wanted you to plug this for a quick second, but sorry, I should have specified that. But okay, Justin, hopefully you'll come back. I'm sorry, Renee. Message back. So this is an interesting, interesting stuff here. I do want to briefly in now because we did meet on some random like Facebook group, and he actually just happened to be in South Korea. So we actually a couple of times, and I've seen quite a bit of a journey that he's gone on. Got to discuss some ideas, and we don't always agree on some things. And the last time he came, I thought it was funny that he was really really nervous to give a critique about Christianity because he thought that it might it was going to be like I was going to get offended if he critiqued Christianity, but I'm like, no, it's to, I've learned to separate myself from my views and say that like I have a view about Christianity, but I'm not Christian. I'm not Christianity. I didn't invent Christianity. There are some things that don't make 100% to me, if I'm being honest. So, and there's some things that seem immoral as well. So I mentioned earlier about no one is willing to make those kind of critiques about their views. And in the book, which what I was talking about is that, look, if we all take time to,
Hey, what's going on?
if we all take time, if we all take time to evaluate the positions that we hold, we will definitely find that there's some inconsistencies in there. So if you criticize something about Christianity, I have no problem to evaluate what exactly it is that you're saying and seeing if there is any merit to that, because I'm a thinking, rational person, and I think as Christians we all have some point in which you're saying, wow, like day to day, I'm trying to live this out, but I fall really short of what I'm trying to live out. So there's either something wrong with the system or there's something wrong with me. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tell you to leave. But if you could just tell me about your website real quick while I call my daughter.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's afiahealing.org. It's basically just a place where people come to get all the stuff they get from religion, except without any of the religion. So all the fellowship, all the meaning to life, all the purpose, spirituality without the religion, or spirituality without the BS is how I like to put it.
Hey, so my daughter has she has a doll now that she's claiming is her sister. So
Gotcha.
we're trying to give her a real sister. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just telling my daughter goodbye real quick. Bye,
Cool.
Leah. Say Tolga. She's showing me her 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 doll right there.
Mm.
She calls it her sister. Leah Tolga. Okay, so let's get into something else that you talked about, which is the forgiveness of sins. Can you
Hmm.
give me your critique about that as well, related to Christianity?
Oh, just the idea that you could pretty much like be a serial killer, and as long as you believe a story, you're forgiven of all that. Um, I think that's pretty. I would call that pretty ludicrous.
So,
I mean that. uh
let's evaluate that for a second, because if you let's contrast this to true hardcore atheism,
Mhm.
okay? Because if atheism is true and you are a serial killer and Christianity is just some kind of let's say Christianity is completely made up, then there is no philosophical difference between you accepting Christianity later on or accepting Buddhism or Judaism. It doesn't really matter either way,
Well, what I'm
right?
saying is like, well, that's philosophically, but I'm talking about the practical use of that. If
Right.
people in society, if people in society believe that all they have to do is believe a story, and they can pretty much do whatever they want, I don't think that's a good philosophy for society as a whole. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong or what actually happens wasn't the argument. Like the argument is
Right.
like, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea for people to think.
Okay. So, a couple of things about that.
Mhm.
Because I will be honest in saying that that is a pretty big critique. That it's I mean, if I read the book, okay, if I read the book, I'm not going to walk away saying I could be a serial killer and just get away with whatever. But I can understand how someone could read it and come to that conclusion. But I will also say that on the other side of that, if you go by the words of Jesus, which I think are really important for me as a Christian, but what you would see is that what you see in there is that you don't just get oh, I'm sorry, and it's all good. One is that you're told is if you come to God and you come to pray and you realize that somebody has a beef with you, that you've wronged the other person, like it's incumbent upon you to go fix that problem before you try to make yourself right with God. So the idea that I could just go out and screen a bunch of people and think that I could come to God and be okay is completely not found inside of the text. So if people behave that way, people might take it as a license to do whatever they want. I'll admit that because I've done it myself. But on the other side of that is if you're actually going by what's in the text, by what it says, like we have to be making things right with the people who we've harmed, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, that's your interpretation of the text. I mean, because I know the Catholic Church for some time was like selling like tickets almost to heaven. I'm sorry.
Indulgences.
Indulgences. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like they obviously don't see it the same way you do, and they're reading the same book. So I guess this, which again is why we shouldn't put so much value in this book. I mean, because these people could interpret it that way, and cause harm. I mean, only some are interpreting your way, where we don't need the book at all. Like we could find peace and inner happiness and work together without this book. Societies were working just fine without Christianity. Like before Muhammad, before Moses got his 10 Commandments, like thou shalt not kill. Killing was already a crime in Egypt. I mean, like Moses got in trouble for killing. I mean, like societies were okay before these books came out. So, I mean, I don't think these books are adding anything of real value where we should look at these books and say, we must follow these books. I mean, for what?
Okay, so once again, just you got to evaluate what I'm saying as opposed to any other Christian. Okay, now the Catholic Church. I'm not talking about the Catholic Church. I'm talking about what the founder of our faith said, and the founder of our faith. So it's not my interpretation. I'm going off of what Jesus himself said. This is out of the horse's mouth. That you can't go around trying to screw people and think that you're going to be okay. You have to make things right. You have to make your own. You have to make amends for what you've done on this earth. Now, I can tell you this. I just got back from the UK. We actually went up and met up with Adam there. Did I show you that video, by the way? Adam and I meeting up.
I think I saw a picture of it.
Yeah, it was great. Actually, yeah. So we got to meet up. We got to stay with his family. But I can tell you this: I went and I saw a bunch of churches there. There are all these glorious, gigantic churches. I saw one in the in the Netherlands that had like a 2-story organ in it. So it's like I'm like this size right here, and this organ is this giant thing. I couldn't believe how magnificent it was. But that could be an example of some kind of Christian materialism right there, where Christians have put a lot of emphasis on this material wealth and making these beautiful churches that are like gigantic, these cathedrals. And so to do that, they needed to make money. And so what were they doing? As you mentioned before, they were selling indulgences to forgive sins, right? So that is people just making stuff up out of the clear blue sky. And so that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about actually getting to what the founder of my religion was saying. And this is something that not only did he say, but you find instances of where people who come after Jesus make up for the things that they've done in their lives. Like I'll give you an example. There's a great story about a guy named Zacchaeus. And he's like a tax collector and he's ripping a bunch of people off. And then after he comes and meets Jesus, he realizes the damage that he's done. And he says, I'm not only going to repay back what I've stolen from people, but I'm going to like give like double or triple of what I've done wrong. So I'm telling you, there is some validity to what you're saying, but not if you go by the actual text, because the actual text will tell you very specifically that like you cannot just go around trying to screw people and not think that you're gonna and think that you could come to God and everything's gonna be okay. Like it's incumbent upon us to make things right. About that.
Well, I mean, so then the word Christian is just too much of an overly broad term. Like what I think the question you mean to ask me is like, what critiques do I have of what you're calling spirituality? Because different Christians say different things. So, I mean, to critique Christianity, I mean, do we critique the Mormons? Do we critique the Jehovah's Witnesses? Like, which Jesus are we following? I mean, Muslims have a version of Jesus who never died, I mean, so from what you are specifically saying, I don't think I have really any critiques of what you are calling spirituality. What you're calling spirituality is just like, having your own moral compass, not looking down on other people, like having like a spiritual relationship, like with, what you're calling Jesus, what I might call the universe itself. I mean, if that's all you're saying, then I think we're pretty much on the same page. We're just calling things different names.
Right. But I'm more handsome. That's the biggest. Hey, can you tell me real quick about your TikTok? Because there's a couple of things I took issue with that we're going to have to go through. But I'm curious about that.
No, I just have a TikTok, Renell the Spiritual Atheist. Or I think the handle itself is called The Spiritual Atheist. I just I put videos up of the truth. So if you have a critique, yeah, I'm down to hear it.
So what has been your reaction, or what has been people's reaction to your videos? Have you
Um,
found that?
well, so far so good. The videos have been really doing well. I did a video about a transgender issue, and a Christian talking about transgender issues, and with that video, I got like the most hatred from Christians that I've ever seen in any of my videos. Like they were really, really against. So I guess like LGBT Q issues are a hot button issue. So that was the
Yeah,
one where I got the most.
this is where I take the biggest. This is where I take the biggest issue with Christians is, because I mean, I will tell you this. I will tell you this. It's not like I don't have a lot of critiques about Christianity or Christians in general, because I do think listening to people like you and to listening to atheists who sometimes might encompass things about Christianity that are better. Like I could tell you this guy right here, Adam. I went and I met Adam, and he actually makes it into my book because I'm hanging around Adam, who's an atheist, and I'm thinking this guy's a better dad than me.
Wow.
That like rocked me. I saw the way that guy talked to his daughter and the attention that he showed his kids, and I'm like, what sense does it matter if I'm standing here with Christianity and I'm not being a father like this guy, man? It was a gut punch. This godless atheist scum is outdoing me. No, I'm just kidding. I love that
I know
dude,
what you
Adam.
mean.
But
I know what you mean.
it was a gut punch. It was a liver kick that like made me it made me gasp, man. It was horrific. It's horrific to be outdone by a pagan scum like that guy. No, I'm just kidding. Adam knows I love him, but so there's this concept. There's this concept of saying that we you can be of too much spiritual. You're too heavenly minded, any spiritual to be of any good. So you're too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. So it's like if you're thinking too much about the spirituality, you can lose out on the things that you should be doing right here and right now, like helping feed somebody or volunteer work or whatever we could do. If you're just thinking about heaven and spirituality, it's one of the critiques I would give about Buddhism. Like I'll tell you something briefly, is that I met this girl who went to Myanmar and she shaved all of her hair off. And she had to like eat in slow motion for like 3 months. Like everything was like in total slow motion. Like she had to eat like this. And she couldn't talk for like 3 months. And she told me like when you're alone like that inside of your brain, inside of your mind, that you can have all kinds of enlightening experiences. And I completely believe in that. I completely believe that some of this stuff that they do could really, really help you out in your life. But at the end of the day, the practical application is whenever you see these monks and they go out and they live out in monasteries out in the middle of nowhere, and they have to accept everyone else's charity, they're not really helping this world very much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what you're talking about is not spirituality. What you're talking about is thinking about spirituality. Like spirituality is not something you have to think about. I am totally one with the universe right now. I am totally at peace inside of my own mind, watching myself have this conversation in total peace. I could almost be taking a nap inside my own mind right now. Like, so that level of stillness can be there. I'm having a very spiritual experience as I'm here talking to you right now and being a productive member of society. So there is practical application. So I would disagree on Buddhism. If we went to Buddhism, we probably have the same critiques of that. But I would say that maybe the reason why Adam is doing what he's doing is because he just has a free mind. He's not thinking about it at all. So he's trusting himself, which is what I teach people to do. Trust themselves, trust what's inside. You don't need religion, you don't need Jesus, you don't need Muhammad. It's already inside of you. And Adam, I would say, tapped into what's already inside of him. What's inside of you, what's inside of me. It's not in a book, it's not in a religious temple. It's already inside of you.
Interesting. Okay. So
Mhm.
you talk about, so then would you say it's a matter of following your intuitions?
Yes, like going inside, like fixing what's inside, not looking what's outside. In fact, like that is what's called the Gospel of Thomas. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I mean, where it just has this other image of Jesus who is saying the same thing that I'm saying, which would be the Jesus that I would agree with, which is that the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. I would totally 100% agree with that statement. And if that was the only statement Christianity was making, I mean, I would call myself a Christian, without the
Okay.
deities or anything like that.
So I do want to transition quick then over to, okay, actually, let me ask you first then before because we'll finish off here talking about your TikTok channel. But what was some of the hate, or what was the message of your critique about the LGBT is, and what was the response of Christians specifically? I'm curious about this. And I take myself off, but I'll be listening to you for I'm just going to go get some more water. So I'll be back in 1 minute, but keep going. I'm hearing what you're saying.
Okay. Shit. Let me 1 second. Let me get the argument. So pretty much the Christian was making the argument that people are born the way they are and they can't change that. And so I was basically making the argument that sin, or like we have to go against what we biologically are when we follow the Christian God. I'm sorry about that. I didn't remember the exact argument, so I have to go and look at it really fast. Because there's a very specific argument he was making. So there's a Christian street preacher who was saying that God created you male or female, and you cannot be anything other than what God created you as, because whatever your biology is what you are. And I was saying, well, our biology also tells us to kill. Our biology also tells us to rape. Our biology also tells us to do a lot of things that we have to go against. So, I mean, a lot of Christianity would be about going against our biology to being these like more spiritual people. So I was pretty much questioning him on that.
So, okay, so that's interesting. And again, I will say this, that I think this is the area in which Christianity fails the most miserably, is with dealing with these kind of people, because everyone, if you go through and you try to analyze everything about their lives or them being a Christian, you're going to find some gaping holes inside of their lives and total hypocrisy. I'll be the first to admit I have such hypocrisy when I apply a different standard for myself to someone else. So it's one of the things that disturbs me most about myself, and it's something I got to keep in check. But recognizing how ridiculously inconsistent and hypocritical I am is something that humbles me and levels me. I will talk about that, about being grounded. It helps to ground me and keep my mind where it should be, and recognizing I don't live up to like 10% of what's in this book. And so to go out and try to bash other people with this little, it's like I have like a hammer and I have this little thing and I'm trying to hammer people down. And yet the only thing I have is just a little tiny tweezers.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. It's very grounding. But what was the response? What was the response of Christians? You said you got a lot of hate on it. So tell me
Oh,
about that.
just a lot of homophobia, a lot of the Bible's against it, the Bible's against their lifestyle. Trying to say that I'm transgender. The only reason why I'm saying this is because I want to be a woman. I mean, just I guess like just petty, very petty, like nonsense. But I mean, everyone has like I know these not the best Christians. These not the best examples of Christians. But it does happen.
You know, the Bible also tells us not to hate. Do you know that?
Well, yeah. I mean, well, people would argue with that. I've heard people say that God hates.
No.
And
Yeah. Well, God definitely does hate, but from the Bible, but it tells us not to do it.
okay.
But I do want to say something that I really do hate you, just Brunel,
Mhm.
and I'm tell you why. I hate people who shave their head, who have like all their hair. I
Yeah.
shave my hair because I have no. You have like a
Yeah.
perfect set. I could see your hairline doesn't go back at all. I'm like, yeah, I hate people like you. I just want to throw that out there. One of the areas I fall short. Okay, so the last thing I do want to talk about was that you had an interesting argument about evil and about God. So can you give me your best argument with that real quick?
Evil and God. Oh, why the Christian God doesn't exist? So, oh yeah, just that the Christian God can't exist the way that is characterized, because the Christian God exists within space, so he could not have created space, which is the argument. Like your God exists within time, so he's not the creator of time. Like whoever like came up with the idea of the Christian God didn't understand how the universe worked.
No, that's not the one I was talking about. The one with the evil and basically making God like Swiss cheese. I thought that was interesting.
You mean like why the Christian God can't exist, right? I think that's the
Yeah,
argument you're talking about.
yeah. Let's hear that.
That's it. The Christian God can't be everywhere and not somewhere at the same time. Like so, evil is void of good. So God doesn't exist somewhere. God doesn't exist in evil. So he can't be omnipotent, like in the way that Christians say he can.
So let's unwrap that a little bit for a second. That would only be true. That would only be true if you assume that God has to be 100% good.
Mm-hmm.
If God is the source of everything,
Mm-hmm.
which the Bible, which I actually say, Isaiah says this in the Bible, that God creates everything. He creates the good and the bad. He creates the snow and the dry desert. He's created everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he exists pretty much. I mean, you could argue he exists in everything because everything is a creation of him. And he kind of just is omnipresent everywhere. So even where the evil is, he's also there as well. So I think, well, what?
No. Well, then we don't disagree. Like there are Christians who say that God is only good, that evil is the absence of God. That's what evil is. Evil is the absence of God. Or like when you go to hell, you are away from God. So if you're saying God is everywhere, then the Christian God that I'm talking about is not the Christian God you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going by what the actual text says, not what any Christian says. And the text says that God is everywhere. God is in hell. The Bible says, if I go down into hell, you're there still. So, yeah, if God wasn't existing in this space where there's evil and God was like Swiss cheese, then yeah, you would be right. But I would think you would be right. But from my interpretation is that he has to be everywhere. He's created both the good and the bad.
Well,
That's
yeah, but
like,
then
to me, to me, to me, the only conclusion, honestly, is something more of like a Hinduistic God. The Hinduistic concept of God actually makes perfect sense. That like everything is just like, like pieces like of God. So it's like if you think of God being like a gold mine, and then you have, let's just say this, or like an earring, then that is just a piece of that gold of the greater gold mine. You know what I mean?
Well, I totally agree with that. I mean, so the God that you um, are worshiping is not the general understanding of the Christian God. I had Christians who did a response video and said that God has a manifest presence and a general presence, and like his manifest presence is where like his being is, and his general presence is just like what he sees. So like that's kind of the Christian God that other people. So I guess the formula was incorrect. We had to understand what Isaiah thinks, because what Isaiah thinks is not mainstream Christianity. Hello?
Sorry, say that again, please.
Oh no,
Can you say that again?
yes. So I said, so I had another
The last
Christian
thing.
who came on. Oh no, oh I said, your God, what you're worshiping is not the mainstream Christian Christian God. So this is your personal relationship with Jesus. So I guess what I'm not going against what you think God is. I'm going against like the mainstream Christian, like what people generally understand as Christian, that God is all good. There's a Trinity, like that type of thing. That hell is being away from God, like these types of ideas that are like the mainstream ideas. That's what I'm going against.
Well, so okay, so let me expand on this a little bit, because I do in a sense believe that God is just all good. Okay, there is that, but it's like God couldn't accomplish the maximal amount of good unless there were some kind of evil to like overcome. And I'll give you an example of this, because people say like, well, why couldn't, why couldn't God like destroy or that, or ways? And that sounds like a really solid critique on the surface level. Like you take a look at all the evils in the world, and yeah, just on the surface, it does seem pretty damning and condemning on God. But on the other hand, let's just hypothetically say that God created everybody like Gumby. You remember Gumby and Pokey,
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
claymation, and like
yeah, yeah.
Gumby could basically transform himself into like a race car if he needed to. Pretty much because clay, you could turn it into anything. And so Gumby would basically fall out of a building and get smashed to like the size of a pancake, and then abruptly just turn back into Gumby himself. And so I think about this, like, how did a human create a better concept of creation than God did? Because if I jump out of the building, I'm getting splattered everywhere, and I'm not going to get put back together. But
Okay.
the thing is that assume that everybody was like that and nobody could starve. That would completely eliminate humans' ability to be able to do anything um, like humanitarian, or it would eliminate the need to do something in the universe. If God just created everything perfect, like what are you going to do? How are you going to develop a sense of generosity, of 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 helping people, of alleviating pain? How are you going to alleviate pain if there is no pain in the world? You know.
Yeah, but I
So
mean,
it
you can
seems
use.
good.
No, oh no, I was gonna say, but like you're saying that God created evil to do the maximum amount of good. Because to overcome
Yeah,
evil, you would do the maximum amount of good. But you could flip that over, and it would make equal amount of sense that God created good so that we could have the best form of evil. So when evil people overcome
sure.
good, they do the maximal amount of evil. So God is evil because, and he only created good to maximize evil. We could go both ways with your way of thinking. So like what it turns out, I think
Oh,
like what
good.
it turns out, I think what it turns out, like your understanding that there's a creator responsible for everything in the universe, is that creator is neither good nor bad. It just is. You see what I'm saying? It just is. It just is what it is. And I think that would be more of an Eastern philosophy of God, that it just is. There's neither good nor bad.
Right. Well, the thing is, yeah, I think if you're, what you just said right now, we did a podcast on it called the Evil God Hypothesis. Mm-hmm. And there are people who only try to, with Christianity in general, do that, they're just get to stalemate, then yeah, you could do that all day, man. You know, we could really bang this thing out to some absurdities if that's what you're trying to do. But yeah, I philosophically, there's 100% right. There's no way actually around that. Christian.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Because that could be some evil and the good exists.
Okay, your audio is very bad. I didn't quite hear you. You're breaking up a lot.
Oh, well, you can't hear me now?
No, I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So if you want to just argue to stalemates, I actually agree with you completely that there's no way to get around some of these arguments. But people have argued as atheists for what you just said right now. And it's not really that they believe that. They're just trying to destroy, or not even destroy, just to get to stalemates as far as the Christian worldview.
No. I'm getting to the truth. Like, so both things are true. If you make the argument that God is good, you could also make an equal argument that God is evil. So what it turns out is God is perfectly good and evil at the same time, which means God is neither. God is neither good nor evil. It just is. Like, and looking at it one way, you're just choosing to look at it one way and not the other way. I mean, but it's not what you're saying is not the truth. It's just the way you choose to see it. That would be the conclusion there. You're not speaking truth. You're just talking about the way Isaiah likes to see it.
Interesting. That's an interesting point. So this is, you said we got Renell, the spiritual atheist. That's on what is TikTok, or you said the spiritual atheist?
Yes, it's Renell spelled with 2 E's. Renel.
Oh, well, pardon me. Wouldn't that be Renell? Wouldn't that be Renell?
That's Renell. Well, that's how it's pronounced, Renell.
I guess the joke's on you then, because the 2 E's. I teach English here, so I think the 2 E's makes an E.
Yeah.
So that's not even your. That's not even your. That's not even your hand spelled as Renel as well.
No, my handle spelled Renel. You spelled it Rinel.
Oh, okay. No. I think you said, man. Wow. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. There's 2 E's. Okay. But your handle on TikTok.
I think your internet is slow. I didn't make out what you just said.
That's your handle on TikTok, right? The spiritual atheist?
Yes.
Okay. And then just one tell me your
tell you one what?
Website.
My website is Afya AFYA healing.org. AfyaHealing.org.
Is this right here?
Yep, that's it. Yes, that's correct.
Oh, I actually got it right this time. Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. Well, Renell, thank you so much. You have any last thoughts before we head out here?
No, I just appreciate the conversation, and thank you for having me.
I'm going to say the Lord's going to smite you doubly hard because you're committing blasphemy on Easter today. So expect twice the suffering this week, Renell. And always appreciate talking to you. Even if we don't agree on everything, it's always definitely interesting to bang out some of these ideas, and to be respectful. You and I are always respectful. We're talking about, so getting out idea out the other person, right?
Yep. I'm sorry.
I said we could bang out ideas, but not bang on the other person.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but I definitely still do hate you either way. So I do want to close out on that because of the hair. I could get over the philosophical bashing, but the hair thing, that's always going to cause an issue with me. But anyway, closing out here, and thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you again, buddy.